Good morning, everyone. My name is Jordyn Smith, and I am the voice and the astrologer behind the YouTube channel and webpage called Nonconformist Conscience. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook on Nonconformist Conscience as well. This week, I already put out the written report where I go into Tuesday through next Monday, transits of each one of those days. If you're someone who likes to read, that is posted on my website, and I will also post a link for you guys if you want to read that. But for this video, I am going to be going over Pluto conjunct Mercury in the sign of Cap. That's happening on February 10th. Then the following day, Mercury will move into the sign of Aquarius. And then the following day after that, Venus will, in the sign of Pisces, will be conjunct her ruler Neptune. So there is quite a bit to unpack here. So Mercury through Capricorn, for those of us who have been consciously working with and utilizing astrology, have been understanding that Mercury in the sign of Capricorn has really symbolized a time where we are learning to commit to ourselves in a new way. It's in a cardinal sign, so it's speaking to getting something new up and running. Mercury is the nature of duality, and so we can see that there are choices that we've been needing to make and the need for commitment. As Mercury in the sign of Capricorn was retrograde, it gave all of us a really good opportunity to let go of the logical left side of the brain and to tap into the right side of our intuition. This has ultimately helped us all understand or start to understand or relearn or reformulate how we gain what Jeffrey Wolfgreen calls natural authority. And this is by asking and answering our own questions. What's right for me? What's wrong for me? What do I need to commit to? What do I need to make a judgment call about in regards to what I should be committing to or not? As Mercury has been approaching Pluto, who's been at the 28th degree mark, we can see that there's a culmination, especially as Mercury has been approaching Pluto, being in a balsamic conjunction. So we are looking at the culminating dynamics of the ways in which we think and learn and think about ourselves. This has all given us all opportunities to look at how we have been in self-defeating thought patterns that have been habitual, or where we feel depressed, and that's been a call to look at the tender areas within that need us to dive into the emotional body, the polarity of Capricorn, Cancer, as a way to learn emotional validation. With Mercury conjunct Pluto and being ruled by Saturn in Aquarius in a new phase conjunction, moving out of a new phase conjunction with the Sun in Aquarius, both being ruled by Uranus and Taurus, there have been opportunities for all of us to liberate from these dynamics through reflecting, which is a function of Capricorn, and I went over this the past couple of weeks, through reflecting, which is what also, depression can do for us. It gets us to go within, the function of the yin energy moving inwards, to think. we have been reflecting on prior choices and needing to take responsibility for those choices, as to not be in a victim consciousness, or as a way to not make those choices again. And through the reflection and taking responsibility, we get to pull in discernment and to make a judgment call about what is right and what is wrong for us in terms of how we are inwardly relating to ourselves, what's working, what's not working, and to really liberate from crystallized structures of old thought patterns that are self-defeating in nature, and really induce the sense of powerlessness. Like, what's the point? Nothing's happening. I can't do anything right. You know, this kind of phenomenon. And so with Mercury in a balsamic conjunction to Pluto, about to cross over and enter a new phase, this is a chance to really reflect on all of the things that have led to this moment in time. Especially because Venus is in the sign of Pisces. She's the ruler of Uranus that is pulled into this mix on this day. And she's also the ruler of the Libra moon that is happening while Mercury is conjunct Pluto. The Libra moon is also trine the Saturn and Sun conjunction. And to me, this really symbolizes that through reflection and objective awareness, we get to understand the dynamics of where we've had codependent relationships, enmeshment, and where we've created external dependencies on others instead of taking our natural authority and acting in integrity and sovereignty of ourselves and meeting our own needs. And so through this reflection and objective awareness, we then get to liberate from these prior dynamics and to really radically alter and shift the ways in which we inwardly relate. You know, Jeff talks about how Uranus Aquarius is like the vibration, the energy of the soul. And so we can see through all of these transits right now that a lot of our souls are wanting to start to vibrate energetically on a different level, so that way we can call in our community, our tribe, our friends that are really in alignment with what our values and what our needs are, what we've been self-discovering and changing and altering within. That way, not only do we inwardly relate differently, we can then externally relate to others in a different way, in a way that is not abandoning ourselves while we're doing it, while we're relating to others. So this is a day where we can really look at the ways in which we might have been abandoning ourselves, taking on others' values and needs, externalizing our value through helping others, maybe not helping ourselves, or with Pisces Venus in the mix, by giving and pouring from a cup that now is empty, that can't be poured into others anymore. And so there is this need to really liberate from dynamics of not being able to emotionally depend on oneself or to be self-sufficient. There's a call to really look at the dual nature within of doing for others and not doing for self. And through the reflection and the awareness that comes with the moon in a disseminating trine to Saturn, Sun, and Aquarius, there's a beautiful chance and opportunity for us to have information about why we made those choices prior, the psychological and the emotional nature of why. And it will stem from how we've been conditioned through society, through family, or through religion, or all of the above, you know? And so this can be a really great opportunity to experience knowledge that wasn't there before, an awareness happening, a reckoning within happening. And the point is to have reverence for self while going through this, and to give oneself compassion and grace while honestly looking at ourselves, seeing the truth. So as Mercury passes over Pluto and goes into a new phase conjunction with Pluto and starts a brand new cycle, we then have Mercury going into the sign of Aquarius the next day. And Mercury in Aquarius is ruled by Uranus in the sign of Taurus. And Mercury is, our thinking, our logic, the way we formulate and contextualize everything, how we classify. It being in Aquarius and ruled by Uranus and Taurus, this is the higher mind. It is all of the information from prior lifetimes, all of the memories, our long-term memory in this lifetime and prior lifetimes, and then Mercury is our short-term memory. And so what we're really doing is we're having an opportunity through this transit of Mercury in the sign of Aquarius being ruled by Uranus and Taurus to really look at where we might be projecting, where we're maybe not seeing the truth, where we are basing it on opinion rather than fact. And it's through the lens of our prior experiences, which really means that there's a hard time when we're projecting to be able to live in the truth of what's occurring and in the present moment. And so there can be opportunities or events triggered through this transit of Mercury and the sign of Aquarius. So that way we can get to the bottom and a deeper understanding of our projections. So for a lot of people, this is the need to look back at old trauma. Aquarius, Uranus, trauma that has affected the ways in which we relate to ourselves. Inwardly relate, Taurus. The ways in which it has created the illusion, Venus and Pisces being the ruler of that, Uranus and Taurus, the illusion of what the truth is and how we have experienced disillusionment in the past and how it can stem from not wanting to see the truth of what's occurring, but only wanting to see the potential of it. So for a lot of people right now, there is this really big call to make a huge conscious effort to become an observer of your emotional dynamics, of how you're inwardly relating and how the past and trauma and things that trigger that trauma can create the illusion of truth, and to gain the objectivity around this as a way to transform the ways in which you inwardly relate and to liberate from prior trauma, so that way we can live in the present. And trauma doesn't have to be... I worked in mental health before I got into astrology. I also did hair and makeup before that for years. And so both of those are these kind of professions where you are listening to other people and their stories, and you get to really understand the nature of how people's trauma affects them. I'm someone who's experienced a lot of trauma. I have a packed 8th house in my chart, and it's Capricorn. So I understand, but there's an illusion that there are different rankings or classifications of trauma, right? Like, we've all been around someone, I like to call it trauma yoga, or the trauma Olympics. Like, someone is talking about their trauma and then this other person is trying to one up them about their trauma. Well, your dad hurt you, my dad left, at least you had a dad. Like, it's like downplaying someone else's trauma and almost having a righteousness about their trauma. And I want to make it really clear that no matter what type of trauma that you experience, trauma is trauma. It is all going to impact our nervous systems. It is all going to impact the ways in which we inwardly relate. It is all going to impact the ways in which we're able to listen to ourselves, and on the contrary, to not listen to ourselves. It impacts the ways in which our fight or flight mechanisms shoot off, and where we create different types of attachment styles relating to our trauma. If you look at trauma in a holistic kind of way, no one's trauma is better than or less than someone else's. And I want to make that really clear as things come up this week, that to honor the truth, Venus, Pisces, of what you've experienced is actually very powerful. To honor the fact that something was traumatic and to take responsibility for how it has affected you. Not saying that, I mean, this is about getting out of a victimized consciousness, honestly. When we are looking at the dynamics of Venus, Neptune, Pisces, Lilith, and the sign of Virgo, all of the Cap stuff going on, we are looking at needing to get to the root and dive in and peel back the layers of how these things have affected us, so that way we can then empower ourselves. And we can't do that by comparing, Libra Moon, our trauma to other people's trauma. Your trauma is valid. It's affected you. If we were to do a scan on your brain, or a CT scan, MRI, and someone started talking about your trauma, and the person right next to you is in the same machine getting a scan done, and someone's starting to talk to them about their trauma, the doctor looking at both of the brains simultaneously are going to see the same things light up. It's not any different. And so there's a need to honor that and to understand that, and to not downplay how it's affected us, because to honor the truth of it means that we get to liberate from it. And it can be really hard, because they're really comparing trauma is suppressing it. Oh, what I went through wasn't as bad as you. Do you know how many times I've heard that from people? Like, it's so sad, and in the past, it actually made me feel like, I can't open up to people because they're going to compare their own stuff, and it's going to take away from how they're feeling about their things. And so it's just, I wanted to make this really clear to people. It doesn't matter if you got in a car wreck and it was extremely traumatizing for you, or you who experienced bullying. The only difference that trauma can create is if it's a sustained trauma, if it's for a length of time. And then we're looking at things like domestic violence, which is, complex PTSD, which is definitely that of a combat veteran, because it's a sustained event. It's not something that, so you're having to live in perpetual cataclysmic traumatic events for a sustained amount of time. But there's still PTSD. And it still makes it no less or no more than the other person. You're still experiencing the same psychology around these events. And so I really just wanted to, I know I've digressed, but I really wanted to put that out there, that it's important for people to know that, because I hear so much that people will downplay what's happened to them, or they will want to compare and think like, well, you shouldn't be feeling that way. I had it way worse, or vice versa. Like, it's not healthy, and it's suppressive. That's what it's doing. It's suppressive, it's judgmental, and it's shaming. And so while we're looking at this week and these types of dynamics, it's really important for me to speak on this. So let me continue on. So since we're looking at all of this, you know, the sun and Saturn are also square to Uranus during this Pluto Mercury conjunction. So there is an opportunity to really, through reflection and understanding of choices and our own conditioning, to be able to liberate from these dynamics, to not have to experience this again, and to really get to the bottom of it. And it can radically alter and change the way that you view yourself and how you relate. And so there's a need for self-honesty, and that can be really tough. You know, Venus is ruling the moon, and Uranus, as this is going down, she's in the sign of Pisces. Neptune, her ruler, is opposing Lilith in the sign of Virgo while this is going down. And so essential humility is really important, and essential humility comes in the form of being able to take responsibility for oneself and to be honest that on some level we've all called in our dynamics as a way to counteract some type of imbalance that has been created, whether in this lifetime or a prior lifetime. And so as Mercury and Pluto are conjunct, and speaking to everything that I've already talked about, this is just a really great opportunity for all of us to change the ways in which we have been self-deprecating, self-defeating, and to really have the opportunity to look at our trauma in a new way, in a way that honors the truth. And when we do that, it gives us the opportunity to be able to understand our projections as Mercury is going through the sign of Aquarius. So there's a really big call to step outside of oneself. There's a beautiful teaching by Krishnamurti. There's a book that he has, it's very thin, it's called On Relationship. And he talks about being an observer. And how when we become an observer, we get to detach from what we've known and to honor what is occurring, to be able to be present, to be able to listen to ourselves, to be able to listen to others. Jeffrey Wolf Green has talked about this as well. But in this book, Krishnamurti goes into how you can do that is by not necessarily identifying with your emotion as it's coming up. So as Mercury is transiting through the sign of Aquarius and its planetary ruler being in the sign of Taurus, we get to have a chance to really observe how we do relationship with ourselves and relationship with other. And through Venus and Pisces, we get to dissolve all of the illusions that have come before, and we get to dissolve the culmination of relational dynamics that are wanting to dissolve away, that have no room for growth anymore. So Krishnamurti talks about how if you're, experiencing angry, being angry, instead of being like, I'm angry, you can actually step outside of yourself in a sense and create objectivity by understanding, okay, what am I feeling here? Oh, this is anger. And then identifying that, and then I wonder why I'm experiencing anger. Not I am angry. It's I wonder why I'm experiencing anger. And through that, it creates new neural pathways to create the objective awareness, to then create a disconnect from us projecting the prior dynamics onto the present moment. And so just asking yourself these questions that can get you into the observer mode as Mercury is moving through the sign of Aquarius is a really beautiful practice. And if you guys want, I want to see if I have that book right here. No, but I will post a link to it. But I mean, during this time, if you're someone who's really working on your emotional dynamics, this is a really good book that I suggest to ponder on what he talks about. So the next day after Mercury moves into Aquarius, Venus is going to conjunct Neptune in the sign of Pisces. And there can be confusion, especially if we're working on our projections. There can be external events triggered for some where they are going to be confronted with the truth of situations and maybe coming to the understanding that what they've known to be true is really not true anymore. And so this can also be understanding more along the lines of how you're inwardly relating and what your actual needs and values are, and understanding that they can be conditioned values instead of natural values. With Venus conjunct Neptune, there's a beautiful opportunity for us to see the truth of who we naturally are, regardless of the external situation, whether it be a crisis or it be more easily flowing for you. The whole dynamic with Venus conjunct Neptune is to implement values and needs that are in alignment with whom you naturally are at this moment, and to dissolve the old. And through the dissolving of the old, through the function of liberation, we then get to implement new ways of meeting our needs, of learning new values, of experiencing what is meaningful to us. For those who have externalized something and given something outside of themselves as ultimate meaning, this is a day where one can experience disillusionment. This is one where an event can get triggered to force someone to see the truth of the situation, which sounds really doom and gloom and scary. But no matter what occurs for any given soul that is going through something, with Venus conjunct Neptune, while it's opposing Lilith in the sign of Virgo, there is a deep teaching and understanding that there's an inner universe and that we don't need to externalize or give something outside of ourselves ultimate meaning. And there's a deep, beautiful teaching on how to readjust and realign oneself with what is actually true. And this only comes through the reflection and the objectivity that all of us have been understanding at this present moment in time. I wanted to look. I have this chart right here, and I want to make sure that I am yes. So as Venus and Neptune are in a conjunction, they're going to be trining the South Node in the sign of Scorpio that is ruled by that Pluto in Capricorn. And for a lot of us who have been consciously working on things, this is more about understanding and coming to a deeper understanding of why in the past we gave something ultimate meaning outside of ourselves, why we chose to make those choices, how we were giving our power away, or how we bought into illusions that we didn't have a choice and that we needed to suffer before something good happened. this really speaks to this trine to the South Node, speaks to understanding the culminating dynamics that have occurred through prior years of where we have bought into illusions and where that has stemmed from our conditioned thinking. And now understanding, you know, what motivated us to make choices in the past to give something ultimate meaning outside of ourselves. And so this is just such a beautiful opportunity for all of us to get to the bottom and to get to the truth of what we've experienced, as a way to really liberate from all of this junk. It's like if someone crapped in a toilet and they're not flushing it or something, like this is a moment where you get to flush the toilet. It's kind of crude, but I'm pulling in Scorpio here, so it's pertinent. And so it is a great opportunity for all of us to really connect with the divine, if that's what our soul is seeking. It is a great way to understand that you know, we don't experience things for nothing. We don't experience them just to have an experience. We experience things for them to be teaching moments in our life. And this is very true with Jupiter being in the sign of Aries right now. There is a way out, and that is through. It's not suppressing. It is whatever is occurring. If it's crisis, if it's an ease of a situation, that no matter what, we just need to let it wash over us and to surrender to the process and to not try to control what is occurring externally outside of us. There's a need to surrender to what is wanting to be revealed for each one of us in regards to where we have and haven't made correct judgment or have and haven't had discernment. And this can be through the function of a variety of relationships. I know here where I live, I've been seeing so many people this past year experiencing spiritual disillusionment because they didn't have spiritual discernment within groups of people. So they realized that they were giving ultimate meaning to a group of people, and then really realizing that there was a lot of trauma and toxicity within the groups. And as these dynamics have been culminating that I've been talking about, I've been seeing this beautiful thing happen where they're understanding why that happened. So this is a week that is all about understanding the why. And through understanding the why and feeling the emotions and not suppressing them, we can all liberate ourselves from the past dynamics that really are not serving as a catalyst for growth anymore, that are where we're recycling or recreating events that are delusive in nature. So I feel like this was such a kind of a downer today, when really I feel like it is a beautiful week. Like there's so much growth that can occur this week. It is just going to take for some a conscious effort to be a witness of self. So I wanted to share that, and I hope you guys have a great week of diving into how you are inwardly relating and dissolving what is counterproductive and committing to the choice to remain in your own sovereignty and to experience how to self-validate yourself, how to feel self-sufficient, how to feel confident, how to feel like you can do this thing we call life, because you can. So if trauma is coming up for you this week and you're being triggered, use it as a beautiful opportunity to teach you something about yourself on a much, much deeper level. I love everyone, and I will see you all next week.